You are listening to Inside IASB, a podcast series dedicated to informing and encouraging Illinois School Board members. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the podcast. My name is Isaac Warren, and I am the Director of Digital Communications at the Illinois Association of School Boards. I've got Gabriella Gabehart with me, and she is our new Assistant Manager of Marketing and Publications. And we're going to be talking with her today about kind of who she is, how she got involved in her work, and what she's really passionate about. So, Gabriella, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let's just dive on in. So like we said, you've recently joined IASB as the Assistant Manager of Marketing Publications. So what do you do in this role, and what excites you most about working with IASB?
Yeah, so in my role, I do a mix of creative work and coordination. I support marketing and publications by designing layouts and graphics and working with different departments to make sure everything stays on brand and gets done on time. And what I really love about IASB is that the work feels meaningful. We're creating things that actually support and inspire school leaders in Illinois, which makes the creative side feel purposeful.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I think it's really cool to, and maybe it's daunting to have all your work seen like statewide, like me like that. But I mean, I think it's really cool that knowing that your work is making that kind of impact in so many public schools. That's really neat. So kind of let's talk a bit more about your history. So you spent 3 years teaching English as a second language in Valencia, Spain. So how did that international teaching experience shape you personally and professionally?
So I spent 3 years working as an English teaching assistant in Valencia. So I supported the main English teacher in a public high school in Spain. And it was honestly one of the most formative experiences of my life, if not the most formative, both personally and professionally. On a personal level, I'm half Mexican, but I didn't grow up speaking Spanish fluently. So living and working entirely in Spanish really pushed me to complete my lifelong goal of becoming fluent in Spanish. So everything from the day teaching to government paperwork was completely in Spanish. And reaching conversational fluency gave me a lot of confidence and independence, and it helped me better understand what it felt like to navigate the world in a second language, which made me a more empathetic educator. And professionally, I worked in 2 very different high schools, one in a wealthy suburb and another in the city. And while both students in both schools were motivated to learn English, the resources looked very different in both schools. And for students learning English in Spain, it's not just an extracurricular, it's required to access university. So there's a lot of pressure on the students to succeed. In the city school especially, I worked with students from all over the world, including parts of Africa, Latin America, and Eastern Europe, many of whom didn't have the same English foundation as their Spanish classmates. Class sizes were larger, resources were more limited, and students came from very different socioeconomic backgrounds. That experience taught me patience and empathy and showed me how access and resources affect learning and how important it is to meet students where they are. It also reinforced how powerful language education can be. For many of those students, I may have been the only native English speaker they'd ever spoken to. So overall, it made me a more thoughtful, adaptable person and gave me a much deeper appreciation for equitable access to education, something that still shapes how I think about my work today.
That's really cool. Yeah. And you mentioned empathy a couple times in there. I think that's a really cool perspective to take away from navigating a country where you're not the dominant language speaker anymore. That's really cool that you're talking with kids who maybe have never met somebody who spoke English as their dominant language. I mean, when you were doing that, was it like let's say your first month in Spain, was it a little daunting going from primarily English speaking country to a primarily Spanish speaking country?
Yes and no, but I also just found it so exciting. Sure. I woke up every day and I felt very grateful to be in such a new, exciting environment and so immersed in a new culture and language. But there was a lot of learning curves, definitely, especially doing all the government paperwork and Spanish because they don't speak English at the government offices.
Oh, wow. Yeah, there you go. That's the first hurdle out right out of the gate. But that excitement, though, I think is what really drives people to pursue those types of experiences, because you're not, if you're afraid of those things, you're probably less likely to be, you're going to be more hesitant. but it sounds like you were really just to dive on in and just go for it. And that's really cool. So coming from a family of educators and yourself being a third generation teacher, so how would you see that background influencing your approach to supporting public school leaders through IASB's work?
So education is a huge value in my family. My grandmother and both my parents were teachers, and they've always been strong advocates for public ed and making sure no child is left behind. For example, my dad even served as a Peace Corps volunteer in Liberia, West Africa for 4 years back in the 1980s. And through that work, he helped develop reading materials for children in low-income remote villages. And hearing stories like that really inspired me and shaped how I see education. And my mother, she was also a teacher, and she was one of those teachers that really went above and beyond. She taught at a low-income school, and I remember her buying turkeys for each of her third graders for Thanksgiving, so their families would have something for the holiday. And to this day, she still receives texts from her students for creating such a safe place for them where they felt loved, especially because some of them didn't always have the best time at home. So seeing things like that growing up made me believe that education is one of the most powerful investments we can make, and that knowledge really is power, as cheesy as that sounds, and that when a student feels supported, it can really change the trajectory of their lives and ultimately our communities.
Cool. And so growing up around that, the kind of, I guess you kind of say you can grew up like around the education sector in a way. Were there a lot of the conversations happening at home that made you want to do that type of education as well? Or was it something you just kind of wanted to do on your own?
I knew I always wanted to do something related to education. I really enjoyed being a teacher, but I think I'm enjoying what I'm doing right now
Yeah.
more. But I think maybe being a teacher in the future is something I would consider again, just because it's really nice to be in the classroom and work with the children directly.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of overlap with teachers and even school board members because a lot of them say the same things about how much gratification they get seeing their students walking across the stage at graduation. That's what it's all about. And board members work is the exact same way. And when they see students succeed, it's great for everyone. So what skills or lessons from your previous work are you most excited to bring to your new position here?
This might sound simple, but I'm excited to bring a strong work ethic and willingness to learn. I don't come in assuming I know everything. I really value listening, asking questions, and figuring out how I can be useful. I also care a lot about doing things well, whether it's a layout, a deadline, or a small detail. I want the final product to feel thoughtful and polished. That mindset is something I've carried with me throughout all my roles.
Sure. Yeah. Hey, great work ethic is what drives really good work. And so you mentioned that your degree is in digital media innovation. How do you see digital storytelling, content strategy, and emerging media tools playing a role in our marketing and publications?
So my digital media background helps me think a lot about how information is presented and how people actually interact with it. A lot of my focus is on clarity, making sure content is organized, visually consistent, and easy to navigate across both print and digital platforms. So at IASB, that's especially important because members rely on our materials for information and guidance, and I want to support that by helping make communications clear and accessible.
Very good. And that balance of digital and print, that can be a real pain sometimes. It's hard.
They're so different.
They are so different. I mean, print doesn't, it's like once you print it, it's static. That doesn't change. But web, oh my gosh, there's so many different devices and so many layouts. And we got some responsive tools nowadays, but it's not as easy as it seems, not as effortless as it looks. So
I love that we do have a lot of print stuff
yeah,
as well.
yeah.
For example, Katie Grant, the director of production services, she has a poster and it says "Long Live Print." And I really love that she still has that because I think we should never stop printing
Sure.
things. I love physical media.
I totally agree. It's one of those things. I was kind of surprised at how much we did print when I first started working here, but learning more about because some areas just don't have as equitable access to that type of like technology or digital means of receiving information. It's like, man, it makes complete sense that we would be printing like this. It might seem antiquated, but it is still a very viable means of getting information to our members.
And it's definitely rewarding to see the journal actually printed.
No, right?
Like we do all of it on the computer and it just doesn't hit the same.
Sure.
Looking at it online versus like holding it in your hand and flipping the pages.
Yeah, it's like holding your craft. That's pretty
Yeah.
rare. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm sure that feels really fulfilling too. What do you hope to accomplish in your first year at IASB? I mean, you've been working here for a couple months, or we're kind of into that already. Are there any projects or areas of growth that you're particularly eager to dive into?
In my first year, I think my main goal is to build a strong foundation. I want to fully understand IASB's voice, its members, and how different teams work together. From there, I hope to contribute consistently, supporting projects and strengthening visual and content consistency, and being a reliable part of the communications team, in particular with helping with the journal.
Yeah, excellent. And that journal is one of the coolest publications that we do on a bi-monthly basis. It's just really cool to read everything in there, and it's always laid out so perfectly, and it looks amazing every couple of months.
So yeah, I'd be more excited to maybe do some more design, creative work, and hopefully maybe design a cover in the future.
That'd be really cool. We'd love to see that. So final question for you, Gabby. If you had to describe your communication or creative style in just a few words, what would they be, and how might members see that reflected in your work?
I'd say my style is pretty thoughtful and organized. I really care about clarity, making sure things make sense and don't feel overwhelming. And I also value collaboration a lot. So my work usually comes from listening, asking questions, and refining things as a team.
That's excellent. Well, thank you, Gabriella, so much for coming on the podcast and sharing some more about yourself for our members. We're really glad you're part of our team and looking forward to more of the designs you're going to be making. Thank you for listening to the podcast, and thank you for your dedicated volunteer service to public education. If you would like to stay up to date with future episodes, please consider following us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, or your platform of choice. Have a comment or question? We welcome listener feedback and invite you to send us an email at communications@iasb.com. Thank you.